Alafia, it's Ianifa Owini Adina Dulasimi. And this is inspired by a TikTok where somebody I know, um, and she was she's thinking about the aging process and things of that nature. And one of the things she mentioned was that, thinking about the fact that at some point in 2 generations, when she's gone, nobody's going to remember her. And so this spawned me to have a whole stream of thought around ancestor veneration. And so to like give you some insight as to why this thought probably came to me in this way is because one, I am a certified diaspora death doula, and I am also an initiated Igungun priestess. So when she said the things, I started thinking about remembering names. And she talks about, their names of her family members that she doesn't know. And so I started thinking about my own ancestor veneration journey. And it began unconsciously. It began with this overwhelming desire to put the family tree together. Like, I wanted to know names. I wanted to know names. If possible, faces of my ancestors. Names and faces of the ancestors is what I was really hoping to see. Apologies, my child came in here to tell me it was spaghetti day after I have already ordered the groceries to fried chicken, so I guess we're doing spaghetti for dinner tomorrow. But anywho, my ancestor veneration journey began with me actually taking some time to learn who my ancestors were and putting a family tree together in Ancestry. And then it led to me getting my DNA test done. Like, not consciously was I aware I was venerating my ancestors, but I was in fact venerating my ancestors. And so now that I have a book specifically for my ancestors, it sits on my ancestor altar. So now I have names. I have names to call when I Mojuba, when I Iba. I have names. Most of the names are people I don't know. I never met them. Most of them I haven't even heard stories about. But I was able to at least get their names. I have a few of them where I was able to find, or at least 2 of them, I was able to find pictures of them. And so I may never have met them, but their name will get called. I may never have talked to them, but their name will get called. In my list, of course, I have my son. I also have a couple of teachers that I was close to who passed away. I have my godson. I have some classmates, and I have some coworkers. And when it comes time and I can show this to my kids, they'll have this whole list of names that they can include in their Mojuba and their Iba, calling on the names of those ancestors, helping them to know who's working, who's resting, so that way they know who to call on. And understanding that ancestor veneration is not about, weaponizing our ancestors, using our ancestors as a bulldog to like rah 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 at people. Ancestor veneration is about honoring and respecting our ancestors. So when I think about, what was said in the TikTok, I was like, I think we all, whether we do it consciously or it's a subconscious thought, we want to be remembered. We want to have somebody remember who we are. And I think about Achilles in the movie Troy and how he said about his name living on through time. And I think that's, a genuine desire for people. Sorry for the background noise. I'm making some breakfast. So understanding that we want to be remembered because we are currently ancestors in training. I asked my mom's one day, and not always the easiest conversation, but I asked her, like, do you want Lorna Doones left on the altar? Because my mom likes Lorna Doones. It's like Lorna Doones, Butterfingers, like, what are some of those things? I currently have some Werther's Originals because I have this random memory of my grandmother and Werther's Originals. If I could find it, there would likely be a can of snuff because I remember snuff as a kid that my other grandmother dipped snuff. Um, there is a dry leaf on the altar because my mother mentioned to me that this tree that was in a yard where I was looking at a house, she had one at the house when she was a kid. And I was like, really? So there's a leaf, a dry leaf on my altar. There's also a chestnut on my altar because my mother said there was a big old chestnut tree near where she lived as a kid. So these little memories, these little tokens. But what about those ancestors whose names we don't remember? And this is where we may not remember their names, but we can remember something about them. We know if we are in the diaspora. That's why I think a lot of times it's really disrespectful to say that you're only indigenous here. Like, yes, you were born here. You are indigenous to this land. And maybe you're first and second generation, ancestors, but you've got a generation of ancestors. You've got a subset of ancestors that did not grow up on this land. And so to act like they don't exist, I think is really like disrespectful. So when I think about the ancestors who were brought over, and yes, we do have ancestors that came over, but we do have ancestors that were brought over. Those ancestors matter. They matter. Those ancestors who were put on those ships and never made it off, they matter. Those family members who didn't get proper ancestralization that are from here matter. So learning how to pay homage to ancestors whose names you don't know is important. This is even important, like heavy for folks who who were adopted, who are in foster care, knowing they can pay homage to those ancestors without ever knowing their names. Like, you can do that. And knowing that, making sure that there's someone that will. Like, I have certain friends, I know they transition before I do, that their name is going in the book. I know their name is going to go in the book to remember them. To remember them so that they're remembered. So that my kids will remember them. I think about, what that legacy is. And a lot of times it's just the random memories. It's just something about you. Like, somebody might say, Auntie Winnie had a lot of stuffed animals. Just something. She was a big old nerd. So being able to reflect on how that looked, and so one of my things I want to leave you with is an encouragement. Go ahead and start building your family tree. As much information as you can find. And there's a lot you can get for free without having to have signed up. But then if you can, that is something you can afford to do. I suggest it's worth the investment to see who your ancestors were. So we at least get some of their names. I don't have everybody's name, but I have a nice chunk of names on my tree. And I'm grateful for that. I was able to, at the time, be able to have the money to invest both in getting the tree and also doing my DNA. I'm grateful to know that I can trace my ancestry all the way back to, enslaved Africans. And I'm hopeful that my name will be said and it'll be called, and I'll mold you bond. They'll pour me libation. Somebody's gonna leave me a Sprite. The Sprite that silly. They're gonna leave me a Sprite, some grape Kool-Aid. You know what? Somebody leave me some strawberry Kool-Aid. I mean strawberry Kool-Aid, and I can't ever find any. Somebody gonna leave me some strawberry Kool-Aid. They're gonna give me some cinnamon rolls, and I appreciate all of those things. I think like I appreciate that, and I hope that you know those who are touching, putting their feet in the ancestral pool of their practices, that they learn that their ancestor veneration practice is so much more than their ancestors doing for them. It is remembering their ancestors, honoring them, paying homage to them, and for those who are called, ancestralizing and elevating them. Oh yeah, I just wanted to share those thoughts because it was a full stream of consciousness that I wanted to get out of my head. Thanks for listening. Oh, double.